Okay, hi, I'm Stuart. Stuart Galbraith. I'm the CEO at Kilimanjaro. Kilimanjaro has been running since 2008. Prior to that, I was the MD at Live Nation, where I was for 8 years. And prior to that, I was 15 years with a company called MCP that started in the 80s, and we sold to Robert Silliman. It's interesting sitting here because obviously we deal at every single level of concert possible and event possible, from a 100 capacity pub all the way through to Nebworth or Hyde Park over the years. So everything from 50 to 125,000 people. But I think what's consistent on what we do is that the vast majority of acts, now not every act that we work with, but the vast majority of acts that we work with, we've worked with right from the very, very start. So whether that be in recent times with Steve working with Ed Sheeran, where the first time we saw Ed was supporting Just Jack, and then at Hoxton Bar and Kitchen, or whether in my more ancient history is with acts like Simply Red, where we go all the way back to our first show was at Ulu, in the bar, in fact. So small venues and grassroots venues are key to what we do, because although we work with Simply Red and we work with Ed Sheeran and Metallica and Andrea Bocelli, the fact is that those shows are important to us, but just as important are the shows that we're doing in pubs and clubs, and they're the shows that we think and hope in 5 years' time will, for us as a national promoter, see acts in arenas. And again, current examples of that for us are 1975, Catfish and the Bottle Men, Ed Sheeran, etc., etc. So the profile of what we do about 600 to 700 shows a year. We now sell about 1.3 million tickets, so we're nowhere near the level of, say, Live Nation or AEG, and indeed, to be honest, don't have aspirations to be at that level. But of that 600 or 700 shows, a good 150 to 200 of those are in venues that are sub 500 capacity, because that's where we find our new acts. And therefore, working with new venues, grassroots venues, and local promoters that operate in those are absolutely key to our business.
Yeah, I mean, just briefly, I mean, is it a system that works very well, or is there some points that you'd like to bring up that were for you, from your aspect, from your end of it, maybe not working perfectly? I
think David and Bev have got some really good questions here that will be controversial. No, it doesn't work perfectly all the time. Mm-hmm. We work with small acts on a different basis. We're not working with them for the 150 ticket sales that we're going to achieve that night. We're working on a 5-year basis. As I said, I think it takes, on average, for us to take an act from, let's say, a 100 club through to an arena, probably up to 5 years. So our agenda isn't necessarily as short-term as, are we full that night, or are we going to make money that night? It's about, are we investing in the act's long-term future?
So trying to find a balance between the long term and the short term.
Yeah, and so our agenda isn't necessarily the same as the local promoter or the pub or the club operator that night, which obviously is all down to whether the bar's making money and whether the show's sold out.
Yes, so for you it's just trying to find an understanding and a balance between the two.
Yeah, and we would not sit, and nobody in our office would sit here and say that we think we can do a better job than someone who lives in Leicester, eats, sleeps and breathes Leicester, or Stoke for that matter is another good example, because we'd be foolhardy to say that. Mm-hmm. Someone who actually lives in the city can do a better job promoting at grassroots level than we can. Mm-hmm. But what we want to do is work with them on a partnership basis so that we can achieve our mid-term agenda and they can achieve their success in the short term. And we're quite happy to then carry on that relationship forward, and whether that be again with acts that we've worked with in the past. I mean, Conal will bear me out on this when he was at MCP, was the company we had in the 80s. We used to promote Blur and Oasis with Dave Travis. Dave Travis at the time was the local pub promoter. He ran the Jug of Ale in Birmingham, and that's the place that we first did Oasis. And Dave stayed as a co-promoter with MCP all the way through to selling out the NEC. The same with Blur. And now we've got current examples that Steve and the guys in the office with are working with, where we're quite happy to work in conjunction with that local office or with that local promoter all the way through to the level of sellout arenas.
Hi, I'm Luke Hinton. I run Juicebox Live promotion company and I'm the in-house booker at the Horn in St Albans. I recently won the Live UK Best Independent Promoter in the UK for Local Impact. To be honest, I think anyone who's putting anything on at grassroots level deserves that award as much as I do, because it's not easy and it's thoroughly important to the industry we're in. I was only invited onto the panel late last night, so I haven't had too much time to prepare. I have scribbled some notes down to try and remind myself of what we do. Juicebox started 9 years ago today. Our first gig was in Watford in a pub. We surprised ourselves with the number of people who turned up and that we managed to get through the night without killing each other, and also that the bands got paid somehow. I took on the bookings diary at the Horn in May 2013 and was based in the office and went full-time there in January 2015. In the time that I've been at the venue, we saw figures of about 4,500 people attending original band nights each year, and to date we're just short of 11,000 for this year. With more shows being put on, you're going to hopefully see an increase, but we have seen an increase of average attendances in a 170 cap venue to about 75 people per show. There's lots of things we've done to try and do that, which I won't run through all that now, but I think it's really working with bands from their first ever show through to touring acts on their first tour, or say nostalgia acts. Actually,
I mean, it'd be interesting, very, very briefly, what is the magic touch that you've done? Is it you? Have you just you're just so enthusiastic everyone's gone down there, or you just got it organised, or are you booking the right kind of acts?
I think there's elements of all of it. I think I'd like to think that my enthusiasm has rubbed off in the team in the venue and other venues. I think it's something we put back in, that I run panels at the venue where we try and educate the local bands about what to do, what not to do, so there's sort of mistakes that bands make on a common basis, and try and do that. Get them to buy into why the importance of a venue like the Horn or Bedford Esquires or Club 85 in our area, they are so important, because without them those bands wouldn't have the places to play. I think then it's sort of is looking at what each area attracts, and in St Albans we struggle with certain genres of music, and it's something I'd like to improve, but that's what dictates what we'll put on. It's not necessarily about what I want to hear all the time. I'd love it to be that we're putting on indie bands all the time, because that is my preferred style, but if the audience don't turn up to those shows, we're not going to be able to put on many more shows as a venue in future, because there won't be the bums on seats.
So it's interesting what you're saying there. You kind of change what the venue is. You know, it's not just a room where bands play. You say you put panels on there, explain what the venue is. So in a way, you put the venue into the heart of the community.
Yeah.
It's something that Mark was saying before. You know, this idea of language is they're not toilet venues, are they?
No.
These are communal spaces, aren't they?
We've got great toilets at Horton. I think the most photographed one's about.
It's a great venue, actually. I've been there. It's a perfectly set up venue. But it's interesting what you've done there. It's, I think if anybody's sort of struggling with the venue still, or someone's new to promoting or putting their gigs on their town, I think you should speak to you, because you seem to know what you're doing here. Because, you know, there's always doom and gloom. You know, panels, people go, oh, God, it used to be better years ago. But you've actually got a completely positive story in a very small town. You know, it's...
I think it's something that people will go out and watch gigs, but you've got to put the right gigs on.
Yeah. And also, because do you work as a venue and a promoter at the same time?
I work as the in-house booker at the Horn, but I do put shows on at other venues as an outside promoter, and I hire the venue, and they tend to be shows that the Horn is too small a venue to put those events on, or I've got another show that clashes. So
when you go to a different venue to put a show on and you work pure as a promoter, is there problems there? Is, you know, things that, in context of the panel to talk about?
There can be, because obviously the venue might have different levels of how they promote the show in-house, so what you're used to. But I'd like to think the venues that we work with on a regular basis, we've actually, 9 years ago, everyone seemed to be in competition. Now it seems to be in our region that there's as venues, we kind of work together. We try to make sure that it's actually to the benefit of the region opposed to the benefit of the individual. So I am on social media, I have access to the venues that we book in elsewhere. They have given me that access so that I can go in and promote the event from their page, opposed to our venue, or our promotion page. We have our own mailing list. The venues will tend to have theirs, and it's just making sure those things are done. Sometimes there is chasing up. There is having to get that done.
Did I just hear that right? You promote each other's shows?
At times, yeah.
Well, that's pretty cool. That's a good thing, isn't it? Because
unless it clashes.
But you actually make sure there's no clashes as well. You're working together that much.
We not necessarily genre-wise.
Try your best, though.
We'll try our best, but it'll be something if there's an act that it was going to play, perhaps St Albans and Bedford, we might look at Milton Keynes and St Albans, or Watford and Bedford. So there's no direct link between. So that you're looking at trying to make it that it's the best experience for everyone who's involved.
Yeah, this is a really good model. So we'll come back to that later. So, okay.
My name's Kate. I take care of the live music programming for the Harley in Sheffield. We're 200 capacity. Sheffield is great because it's a really young city. It's got 2 universities. 10% of our overall population is students, which means you've got a really receptive audience to new music, live music, club nights. But what it does mean is that it gets to the summer months and you have this absolute exodus and you've got no one at all to come to any of your shows. So we responded to that. It just meant that running live music at the Harley, running live music at any 200 capacity venue, I think is a massive struggle to break even on tickets. If you're able to do under 18s, you're not going to sell any beer. So the way that we responded to that was, initially we started, I now take care of the programming for 2 metropolitan festivals, Tramlines, which has been going 9 years, and Outlines, which we started last year. See what we did there. And the aim of that really was to give people a reason to stay in Sheffield during the summer months and to continue to engage with the local independent music scene and live music. Nonetheless, we still found that throughout the year, making our gigs work at a 200 capacity level was not that easy. So now I do promote at other venues around the city, and we kind of use the money that we've made on our 1,000 capacity shows to cover the losses on our Harley shows where we're putting on the bands that we love. But a really good thing, and I think this is partly born out of the festivals, is that there's a really, really close community of promoters working together. And just like you said, it doesn't make any sense for us to have this sort of atmosphere of rivalry. Like, if we can promote other shows in the city, it benefits us. The more thriving the city's music community can be, the better. And also, you want to have mates, because it means that when you get a text back through and you're like, shit, we haven't got that desk, you can run down the road and borrow it off someone.
Is that something, because Sheffield obviously is a big city, but it's a small city, and it's a bit like Manchester was for years, like a village in a sense, and everyone knows everyone else. So this idea of working as teams and working together, because you all know each other, is that an important part of it?
It is, yeah. I think it's really important to the success of what we do. We're lucky in that there are a few kind of festivals in the city, so we all kind of, on a festival level and on a venue level, we can all sort of use each other's networks, and certainly I find that for us, it's a really positive thing. It has a real benefit. And you also, in the context of this panel, you work as a promoter and as a venue as well. So, yep.
There's a lot of cross-pollination. It's not 2 different sides here, is it? Like the way people sort of talk. There's sometimes people are both, sometimes they're different, sometimes they work with each other. Is this a very modern way of working? Doing all the different things at the same time?
I take care of the in-house programming for the Harley, but then we also work with virtually every other venue in the city has put shows on at the Harley and does so on a fairly regular basis. We also have shows from national promoters, and the way that, what I've found working with organisations like Live Nation is the best approach for us is, and Kilimanjaro is the best approach for us is to sit down with you guys at the start and say, this is how we would promote this show if it were us putting it on, because for you guys it's not the end of the world if it doesn't sell 150 tickets. We want that beer money. So And, you know, we don't want anyone to have a bad show when they come through the venue. So we will sit down and go, this is our promo plan, this is how we would like to approach it.
So you would say that local knowledge as a promoter is really valuable?
I think it is for us. I mean, I wouldn't be able to say if it's the same everywhere, but for a smaller city like Sheffield, then yeah, it really is. It really is key.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm a last-minute replacement, kind of. Mandy was meant to be talking, but she's not well, so I'm talking. I started doing shows in my living room about 10 years ago, and then just did shows externally onwards from that point. About 5 years ago, I took over as an in-house booker and promoter for Joiners. I do 300 shows a year. Sorry. I also am one of the core programmes for Festival, Camp Festival, Common People, etc. So we do 300 shows a year at the venue. I work with multiple promoters, everyone from Kili, SJM, Live Nation, MJR, who are in the city, and then we probably do at least 275 in-house shows a year. So obviously I work with everyone from 50 cap up to like 800 cap in the city. We do shows as joiners outside of just our small venue, and we try and grow them to a certain level, and obviously the nationals then come in and kind of take over. I suppose we have a different leg up with things like Festival and Common People. We can grow artists from playing in front of 50 people to then giving them the opportunity to play in front of thousands of people. So it's a little bit of a different setup. I don't know if any other venues in the country have that, but it's a cool thing to have, to go from starting in your living room to be able to work with some of the biggest bands in the world.
Would you say that's kind of like a key role for you, like building bands up?
Yeah, it's something that I love doing on a personal level. I mean, I practically live at the venue. I'm there like 12 to 14 hours a day.
Say 300 shows a year.
Yeah, I mean...
how come you got time to get out here today?
Yeah. I got asked if I wanted to move into the venue this morning because there's some sweat. I was like, absolutely not. I was like, literally could not think of a worse thing to happen. I was like... For free, but still, it's tough. But
and again, like Kate, you wear two hats. I mean, you got one on today, but literally in life-wise, you're a venue and you're a promoter. So, I mean, what do you see as the difference between the two? And what's it also like working with like bigger promoters or out-of-town promoters? Is it again like Kate, local knowledge is really important, or in Southampton maybe it isn't? Maybe a big promoter could put a show on there and make it work.
It is, well, it's down to the circumstance, really. If a band works in a city, then they just work, regardless of where it is. And sometimes you're going to get nationals bringing in shows and they don't do very well because they don't have any boots on the ground to promote to the people in the city. So they do rely on us as a venue or as a promoter to help them. Doing shows with so many different people, I suppose it's, as I say, it's circumstantial to what the act is. Sometimes it's cool to be able to work with nationals, but at the same time, it's obviously everyone knows it's a really competitive market. Ideally for me as a promoter and as a venue, I want to take an artist, put them in front of 30 people, and I want to grow them to be in front of thousands of people, and then reinvest that money back in the venue.
So what do you do? How do you grow it? How do you go from 30 to the 50 to the 100? Is there a way? I mean, obviously, if the band's good, that's part of it taken care of. But as a promoter, what do you bring to that?
So essentially, it's having the ear for the band in the first place, saying, well, I can see this band playing on bigger stages. So if we give them like a local band showcase slot, and then we then bring them back, give them a tour support slot, put them in front of 200 people with another band, then give them a headline slot, and then I can then go, oh, do you want to play on our stage at this festival, Common People? And then they'll play in front of 800 people, and then you can grow them. I mean, no local band's going to do that, maybe apart from Creeper and Band of Skulls. Southampton doesn't have, and Delays, we don't really have many bands come out of a town, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, it's all an educational process, really. I mean, as an in-house booker, I'm sure you guys know, it's not... When I first started, I was like, well, I know about 2 genres of music, and it's all about learning about new genres of music and what works where. And if you're not constantly learning, then I don't think, obviously, there's no room for growth. It's really hard to be a promoter, obviously. It's probably the most stressful job in the world, I imagine, here or there. So yeah, I don't know. I just think having the ability to grow an artist is what it's all about for me. It's like the passion, watching them go from 30 people and then watching 500 people go nuts for them like 2.5 years later. But it's hard to keep these shows. I mean, take, for example, a band like Moose Blood, right? They're selling out Coco and they're selling out academies at the minute. So when I first put them on, there's 25 people there. You know, 2.5 years later, we're doing 700 tickets in the city. The next time they come back, I can't put that artist on because they'll be put on by a national promoter. So what kind of, to quote Family Guy, grinds my gears is the fact that I put all my faith and passion into an artist, lose money, then bring them back, and then I can no longer work with them because they swoop in and be like, oh, there's money to be made, I'll have this.
Yeah, so it's not like the old days where people didn't really know what they're doing so much. The people in these venues know what they're doing now. And you could supply the steps all the way up, can't you?
Yeah.
So bands have to think about, you know, a bit of loyalty and also working with the right people. That's kind of the gist of that.
Yeah.
So Jeff, it's very different your story because you're 100 Club, right bang smack in the centre of London. These, you know, Southampton, it's Sheffield, it's St Albans. So do you have a similar kind of problems, or is it very different? You've got different problems, haven't you?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, to give you a bit of background, I've been there now since 1984. I've been the sole director since 2001. And I'm actually the third generation of my family that's run it. My dad named it the 100 Club in 1964 after selling a record shop that he owned in Soho, because it's at 100 Oxford Street. But before then, it had been mainly a jazz club, and it came under many guises. It was Humps, named after Humphrey Lyttelton. It was London jazz shows. And then when my dad bought a shareholding there, he decided, even way back in 1964, that the club's music policy had to change from being just jazz and be a bit more varied, and that was really the seeds for us having the amazing eclectic policy that we've had. Without name dropping, I was talking to Jules Holland about a year or two ago, who popped in to do a documentary at the club, and he was saying to me, you know, Jeff, he said, I'm really glad, he said, that the club managed to survive back in 2010, he said, because I've been to most venues around the world, he said, and this is the only one, he said, because I like a bit of trad jazz, where I could come and see Ken Collier and his jazzman on a Wednesday and then come back the following night and see the Sex Pistols, and that's kind of how we've always been. And in fact, it goes back even further than that, because my grandmother was also a shareholder back in 1958, and a guy called Dr. Robert Cronenberg did a book about seminal live music venues around the globe. And he came to see me because he wanted some drawings and a few stories and stuff, and said to me that, because I asked him, when I had the opportunity, whereabouts you were on the table of longevity, and he went, well, you're right at the very top. He said, there are other venues that opened before you. He said, but they've all gone now. You know, you're the longest existing grassroots music venue. So, there's a lot of history there, but... for me personally, I saw I did used to promote when I first started working the club, all kinds of bands from Dr. Feelgood to a lot of punk bands, whatever. But I kind of fell across the same problems that these guys have said, and I learned very quickly that for me, promoting wasn't for me. It was a lot of hard work, and you know, there are bands naturally, you know, if they can go to other venues with a 500, 600, 700 capacity, and in London back then. There were a lot of venues with bigger capacities. They're going to go there because that's how bands grow. But I just thought, you know, luckily I still have the club, so I can run a club as well as promote. So I decided to just dedicate myself to trying to run the club and forgetting the promoting, because it just wasn't for me. As these guys said, it is a really, really tough job. I found it very hard. So I've just tried to dedicate myself really to keeping the club going and keeping that eclectic policy that we've always had alive.
And what's it like for you to work with? Do you work with a lot of outside promoters?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're completely dependent. I mean, all these guys, Kilimanjaro, we worked with Conal for years and years, going back a long, long time. SJM, all the Live Nation, all the ones that have been mentioned here. But I also tend to try, because I just felt that actually, from my perspective, I needed to celebrate the club's independence, because it is basically a cottage industry, the only one of any kind on Oxford Street. So what we started to do was to start giving a lift up to independent promoters. And the other thing with independent promoters is that, you know, we've got a capacity of 300, and a lot of these guys have got to get 270 people into the venue before they make any money themselves. So you're always guaranteed good nights. And the other thing we started doing was bringing in independent brewers. So we got Brewdog there and Camden. I mean, Camden have been bought out now, and various others. And we just try and sort of tie that whole sort of independent thing in through the beers, through the promoters, and through the club to sort of, you know, celebrate and show people actually independence can work.
Well, obviously we're taking the risk, but we're giving you the backup we can give venues with our social marketing. Maybe we're coordinating national advertising for a tour, where generally if we're coordinating the national advertising, we've probably got the London show. We're putting the bulk of our marketing into a national advertising campaign and collecting 50 quid or 100 quid off all the regional promoters to put a campaign together.
So you were talking a minute ago about the national advertising, which obviously makes sense, but you said there was sometimes that can go a bit astray, can't it?
It can.
Not with Conal, though.
Conal,
yeah.
I think that there is an alternative to that situation. I don't think that I personally would be upset about losing a band that I have promoted throughout the years to a national promoter when they can definitely deliver things at that level much better than I could. If there is some sort of compensation from the organisations at the top that have the money for the people who...
In what kind of compensation?
Monetary compensation.
Money, yeah. So there's actually, if you break a band by working in Sheffield, they go on to a bigger promoter, a different gig, you want some kind of kickback from that.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. And not just national promoters, but festivals, you know, the organisations who are working, who have the capability to make a decent chunk of money out of live music, which promoters of small venues do not. Mm-hmm. There can be a way that can be compensated. In Sheffield at the moment, there's... It's not music specific. It's the business something development district, and all of the city centre businesses have signed up to this scheme by which businesses of over a certain size contribute a small amount of money to projects that develop the city centre. And I think there is a way that model could be replicated in the music industry.
Is this something that would work though, Conal? Because if you're doing
almost
gigs,
like saying that the Premier League should be spending loads of money on grassroots football, which, you know, they claim they are, and they're not. They're not.
Yeah. Would this be very difficult for? I mean, if you're going to put a gig on, you can lose 23,000 quid. This could be quite a difficult situation if you also got to find some money to pay for a band to compensate for taking from a small grassroots venue. Is this a logical? Is this a workable situation?
No, it's not.
No, it isn't.
It's not workable, and unfortunately, as Conal's only been going since March, but he will unfortunately discover that it's possible to lose a lot more than 23,000 quid, as he knows historically, but so far hasn't done on Crosstown, because you can lose hundreds of thousands of pounds. And I think the way for grassroots venues to share in that success is for you to decide whether you want to work with a local promoter up to a level, but it's on a risk basis. So if you want to co-promote a show at Sheffield Arena, I'll happily do it with you. But you've got to have the wherewithal to actually stand up half of the loss. So
because as we're promoting shows, in little venues, we're not making any money either. You know, and we're paying a rep, a freelance person that's going to get a train to Sheffield and work, and we're paying them a day rate. If the show sells out, we'll probably incur more cost than we're going to have in profitable income anyway. Yeah, understood.
I feel like you don't need, with the national promoters when they hire shows, they're paying reps, some are paying reps 50, 75, then they're paying them for a hotel. Why not just use the in-house promoter? Just give them 40 quid.
Yeah, but
he knows the venue.
Streamline operation.
That's one of the reasons why an agent is using you as a national promoter, because they want the consistency every day. They want to see the same person every day. They want to know that after the first 2 days, they know what flavour M&Ms they want in their dressing room, instead of having to have that same conversation 42 times on a tour.
But they should say, look, this is the Horton and say Albans. We don't do M&Ms here. I mean, how soft are these bands? It's pathetic.
Look, I know that when I started, exactly, good comment.
Yeah. But Conal,
when I started out at MCP, so they were a big company. They brought me in because they weren't getting grassroots artists. You know? They were promoting U2 and AC/DC and Simply Red, bands playing arenas, Bryan Adams, Bon Jovi, stadium acts, arena acts, and they weren't getting involved in new artists. That's where unfortunately, I'm one of the people that instigated national promoters coming into a grassroots level venue, because that's what that's where I was anyway. I was at that level as an independent promoter. I was just at that level then working for a national promoter. So I was only booking shows based upon my level of experience, and luckily some of those acts took off. However, the reason that promoters, since have moved into that level is about market. It's about market share.
Well, it's about,
and if we don't get a band on their first tour these days, we don't get involved down the line. And there are brand new acts that have never played a show that I can ring up certain agents and say, I want to get involved, and I'm told it's already gone, it's already divvied up. They've already earmarked an artist with certain promoters. Not in every case.
So it's pretty fierce, the competition between promoters.
It's incredibly.
But I don't want this to be like, everyone's against the promoters and that, because your role's
we've
really
put ourselves
important.
in this position. We've put
But
ourselves in this
what I'm
position.
interested in is what you could do for grassroots venues, and obviously no one expects you to have to pay for them all. That's ridiculous. But is there a way of making this work? There's obviously I detect a small piece of tension here. So there is a way we can make this work better. Between it's good for you because you're a grassroots person who actually stepped over to the other side, really. So you understand the value of that circuit, and it's getting you the bands that you work with and take the gambles on later on. But is there a way we can get the promoters and the grassroots thing working together in a better kind of way? Is that something you ever think about at all?
If we're hiring a venue, the venue's getting a higher fee, so it's getting its cost covered. We're probably paying for the security and the crew and whatever on top, or within the venue rental. We're not getting any of the bar take. The venue's getting all of that, so we've only got the ticket sales to earn from. So I think every single tour is different. I know there were at least 2 agents in here today, booking agents, and ultimately it's up to artists, agents, who are their representatives and their managers to decide at what level they want a national promoter involved. Because Stuart said before, we can't do the same level job that grassroots promoters can do in their hometowns. We don't have the boots on the ground.
Also, as well, just from my point of view, we're all here in the numbers we are because everyone knows there's serious problems with live music venues. If we didn't use the Nationals, we'd have gone under years ago. The Nationals will always put in good shows. They'll always sell it out. But even at the 100 Club, which is at 100 Oxford Street, we don't have the ability to open 7 days a week, which is why we'd like to have that mix of up-and-coming promoters, independents, and the big boys as well. And the other knockback that we get, or kickback that we get from that, is that quite often Conal or whoever will see that there's a band playing at a festival that wants to do a small show somewhere, and because we've got a good relationship, the chances are we'll get it. So I don't really buy into the argument that the big corporate guys are all bad. I don't think they are. From my point of view, we've only got a 300 capacity and we wouldn't have survived without them. But I think it's good if you've got those shows coming in and you've got a revenue coming in that you can help some of the smaller promoters, some of the independents, and give them a hand up, which is what we try and do. And, I probably shouldn't say this in front of Conal and Stuart, but, we help them out with the rent and stuff like that. So we have like a sort of tiered thing, because we know for a lot of these lads, they haven't got backing behind them, and girls, of course. They need, like I say, 280 people before they're going to make, their 150 quid. So I think it's a balancing act more than anything else.
Yeah, like I said before, there's not sides we're taking here. We're just looking for some communality.
Yeah.
In St Albans, what is this? You have a situation here, or you? So, what's after tertiary market? What's the next one down? Is it?
Oh, in my time at the Horn, I don't know if it's ever happened before. We've had any national promoters come in. It's all local independents. To say the majority of shows we do are in-house. When I first started, I got told you won't get any tour shows, you won't get any touring acts in St Albans because of your location. That was the first sort of year or so. It won't happen. I took that as a challenge. I'd like to think we're now part of the touring circuit. Attendances, as I said, have gone up. Some part of that is due to the level of show we're bringing in compared to where we were. But I do think it's something of maybe location has helped us as well. We get a lot of acts come through the likes of Bastille years and years, in Slaves in recent times, because of our location to London, in that they're not ready to go out on the full national tours. So we've been put onto, it's almost a warm-up show to get them ready for that and get them ready for their support slots. So in terms of working with nationals and how it works for us, I don't know, because we don't deal with it.
Is that something you like to do, you know, because obviously there's problems built into it? Or
I'm always open to anything. Anyone who wants to come in, I'm happy to look at it, because in the day it's for the benefit of the venue. If it's something the venue's going to be busy and it's a night that I might feel as though we've got a local band show that's going to have 15 people in a room, and someone comes and offers me something better, then I'm going to be open to it.
So like Jeff, you know, it's like it's sort of different. You know, you've got the big promoters, helps to subsidise the small gigs, and that's the way the big promoters make the small venues work.
Yeah, I say somewhere like the Horn, the bar is a completely separate company to the entertainment. So anything that goes over the bar, I don't see a penny of. I don't have anything to do with that. But if the bar take isn't strong, I wouldn't be there now. If there's no one spending money over the bar, doesn't matter how much or how many people are attending my shows, then the owner of the Horn, fortunately, is a music fan and has been involved in music a long time himself, wouldn't have kept me on, because in the day it wouldn't have survived, and it almost went under probably 5-6 years ago.
So Kate, we talk about how you like to work big promoters, but also because you are sort of not big, but you're a medium-sized promoter and the venue at the same time.
Yeah.
So how would you make those roles work? And also speaking in context of what these guys do as well.
I think, collaboration is like I said before, really key to us when we're working with national promoters. And we love having national promoter shows in at the Harley. We will approach it in exactly the same way as we would if we were promoting our own show. So we'll say, this is the degree of promotion that needs to be done. Because I think, you know, with London shows, maybe it is easier for a national promoter to sell them out on the booking alone or on the promotion that's being done as part of the whole campaign, because a lot of that is London focused. When shows are taking place outside of London, in Sheffield, a lot of that promotion will come from us. But we want to do it because we want the venue to be busy, and we want to have a good working relationship with promoters of all levels, you know. I think an issue for us, you mentioned national ads before, and this is more a question for when we're promoting our own shows than when we're working with nationals, because obviously that doesn't come into it. But we'll kind of, you know, we'll get a booking through, we're really happy with it, we'll agree with the agent, okay, your national ad contribution for this tour is 250 quid, whatever it is, and then you won't hear anything again until you get an invoice, and you're like, well, this show's sold 20 tickets, so what?
But the money has still been spent.
Yeah, but
and then we don't collect the money, and then we end up losing the 250.
We always pay our invoices.
I'm not saying that you don't, but from our point of view, it'd be better to say to the agent at the time of booking, I can't afford to contribute to a national ad. We would still put you on the ad. It's just that we would run fewer because we would have less budget.
I've been told
that's not what you should all do.
I never knew that was an option. Obviously, we will always negotiate with agents and say this is what we feel is a reasonable contribution for national ads. 250 is not what we would be paying for a Harley show. Mm-hmm. But the part of the issue is that you don't get any. There's no conversation about how that's spent. So we've got a show coming up in a few weeks' time, and we got the invoice through for the national ads, and I said, where is the, you know. Is there anything still due to happen? Because we haven't really seen any spike. You know, what's gone out so far? And they said, oh, yeah, we've spent it, and it was on an ad in Time Out. Time Out doesn't go out in Sheffield. Like, we're not going to sell anything.
That's wrong.
So better communication needs to be done there,
Like you say, definitely it's a conversation that needs to be had between venue and agent at the outset. You know, on any kind of thing that you're spending, you shouldn't be just agreeing to it without a say in where the money's going.
I think these days as well.
Yeah, I was going to. It's similar sort of thing. Is that I've tried to challenge sometimes and been told by an agent, no, you have to be part of it, as part of the show. I have also had it that I've said, could you send me through some proof of where the advertising has gone? I don't mind. I want to see an advert. We can use that in our own local promotion. I've yet to receive any. I've had to go and search for it myself in NME or Time Out or whatever it might be. I've gone and picked up a copy. Oh, there is a little advert there in the corner. I like getting the ones in NME because we supply NME, so it's next to the poster of that show.
So again, communication and getting taken seriously. You're not just like this.
It's just evidence.
Little venue, but you've got to be taken as seriously as big venues because it's part of the process.
In what other field, what other business would you pay £50, £100 towards advertising something or to a product and not have any proof that it's actually happened.
Yeah, just
Yep.
yeah.
That's the key word, transparency.
One quick email is all it needs, isn't it? Thanks to the panel anyway. Yeah.